Hello everyone, welcome back to the political landscape. Today I will be giving a 2026 governor prediction, but a GOP best case scenario. So let's get into it. First, let's look at Donald Trump's approval rating. As of right now, according to 538, his approval rating is plus 6.2. Now, this is a stark contrast from his first term. If you look at his first term, you see that at the end of it, there was minus 38% and minus 11%. He was not popular. A large portion because of January 6th and because of COVID-19. But you're seeing a stark difference this time around. And so when we do this GOP best case scenario, we are assuming that Trump is pretty popular and it's going to be like a plus 3 Republican national environment. So let's start out with the Democrat safe states. We have California, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. And that is gonna be really, oh, and also Maryland. And that's gonna be it for the Democrat safe states. Let's go to the Republican safe states. We have Alaska, Nevada, Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, Florida, Iowa, and Ohio. Now, before I hear all these comments saying this is fake news, this is just my prediction for a best case scenario for the Republicans. I am in no wise saying that this is going to happen in 2026. I don't think it's very likely to happen, but I just want you to keep that in mind for this video. Now let's go to the likely states. The first likely state that I have is the state of Oregon. Now looking back at 2022, we see that Tina Kotek, the governor of Oregon, only won by 3.4%. And a big reason why she only won by that small of a margin is because Johnson ran as an independent and took a lot of votes away from Kotek. And Drazen almost won that governor race. It was really, really close. Now, we don't know if an independent like Johnson is going to run again. But for right now, I would probably put it in the likely margin. And if it's not a very good environment for Republicans, it would probably go into the safe margin. But before we keep on going to the likely margins, I do want to explain one thing with Nevada. Because I'm sure all you guys are thinking, Nevada is a swing state. How is it going to be safe Republican? Well, Joe Lombardo is one of the most popular governors in the country, and he's a Republican from Nevada. And because he has such a high favorability rating and job approval, under this scenario and under this environment, I think he could win by a safe margin. Another likely state that I have is the state of Colorado. Now, looking at Colorado, we see that Polis won by 19 points, which is a crazy big margin. And a reason why he won by that big a margin is, of course, because of abortion in 2022, and more was a more like Republican, more on the extreme side, to run in Colorado. And also, Colorado is just trending left off a cliff. And so it would be really hard for Republicans to get it into the likely margin. Again, you do know that Trump did only lose this by a likely margin this time around. He got it within 12 points. So I do think, I guess, in a best case scenario, it would be a likely state, but that's really not likely in my opinion. Another state that I have as a likely state is the state of Illinois. Now, looking back at 2022, we see that Pritzker only won by 12.5%. So this isn't too far of a stretch to say that he would win by a likely margin, considering that he only won by 12.5 points in 2022, which was not the best year for Republicans, you could say. And so I definitely think that under a +3 Republican environment, this could go to likely. And then another state that I have as likely is the state of Maine. Now, looking at Maine, we see that Mills won by 13.2%. And with just a slight shift of the national environment, Mills could definitely win it, or I think she's actually retiring because she can't run again. But whoever runs in Maine could win it by like a likely margin, the Democrat. So that's why I have it in the likely margins. And I also forgot two safe Republican states. We of course have Vermont and New Hampshire. Now looking at Vermont, it's a very, very Democrat state. But Phil Scott is really a rhino, and everyone in Vermont basically loves him. And he's very, very really liberal on a lot of the social issues, and so he's very popular. And then Sununu is not actually running; he retired. But you have Kelly Ayotte. She won by I think like 9 points, and if she's popular, I think she could win by over 12 in the midterms. And then I think that's about it for the likely states. Let's go to the lean states. We have for a lean state for the Democrats, we have the state of New Mexico. Now, looking back in New Mexico in 2022, we see that Grisham only won by 6.4%. And considering the national environment, if it's a really good Republican year, this could definitely dip below 6%. I think it would hover around 5%. Republicans have made gains with Hispanics in New Mexico, and so you could see that going down to a lean margin. Another one that you could see as a lean margin is the state of Minnesota. Now, Minnesota, you see that Tim Walz won by 7.7%. I think he is able to run for another term. If he's not, I still think that a Democrat will win by a pretty good margin. But considering the environment, if it's a good Republican year, it would probably go to a lean margin. And then also Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania will go to a lean margin. Josh Shapiro won by 15 points in 2022. And yes, Mastriano was not a good candidate for the GOP. He attended January 6th and was a very hardline Republican, which Pennsylvania doesn't like. They like more moderates. And so Josh Shapiro won by a landslide. I think the only way that Pennsylvania gets pretty competitive is if someone like Brian Fitzpatrick wins the GOP nomination. Brian Fitzpatrick is not as hardline on a lot of issues. He actually represents the Bucks area, which is a more Democrat area. I think it actually voted for Harris this election, but he won by like 13 points. He's a very, very popular congressman. And so if he runs, I think he could make it competitive, but I still think that the Democrats would win this, even in a good Republican environment. And so now let's go to the Republican lean states. We have Arizona. Now, Katie Hobbs is not very well liked. She pulled off an upset in 2022 against Kari Lake, partly because Kari Lake was just a very bad candidate. Kari Lake ostracized the McCain Republicans, and that's a big reason why Hobbs won. Now, if Republicans put up a good candidate, I think they could win. A lot of people are saying Karen Taylor Robinson is a good candidate for Arizona. Now, I tend to disagree with that. Andy Biggs, he's actually a conservative. He's in the House Freedom Caucus. Sometimes I get annoyed with the House Freedom Caucus because they tend to block Trump's agenda. But I think from what I'm seeing about him, I think he would be a good person to run for governor. He has stated that he's running for governor, and I think under this environment he would win by a lean margin. Another lean margin that I have is the state of Georgia. Now, back in 2022, we see that Kemp won by 7.5%, and now this was a good environment for Republicans in Georgia and in Florida, but with Kemp not running again, I think that it's going to be closer. And even under a good environment for Republicans overall, I still see this being like a lean margin because of all the Democrat shifts in the Atlanta metro area. Now, of course, Republicans are going to make up with the Republican shifts in the rural areas, but Georgia is trending to the left, and so that's why I see it as a lean margin. And then we have our three last states. We have Wisconsin, Michigan, and New York. Let's start off with Wisconsin. Now, the only way Republicans win Wisconsin governorship back is if it's a good environment, like a red wave or something like that. Because Wisconsin, surprisingly, did not vote too much Republican this year. It was actually the most Democrat state out of the Rust Belt. We see that Tony Evers won by 3.4%. I'm pretty sure he's not running again. I think he might be term limited. But Tony Evers, even with a good funded challenger, still won by 3.4%. And Trump only won Wisconsin by, I'm pretty sure, like 29,000 votes. This is a very competent Democrat party in Wisconsin. And so I think a lot of things would have to go right for the Republicans to win in Wisconsin. That's why it would almost take like a best case scenario for Republicans to win in Wisconsin. And then I have Michigan as a tilt Republican state. Now, I don't think it has to be actually a best case scenario for Republicans to win in Michigan. The reason why is Mike Duggan, the mayor of Detroit, who's a Democrat, is going to be running as an independent, taking votes away from whoever is going to be at the top of the ticket on the Democrat side. And so because the vote is going to be split, I think it's very possible that a Republican wins the Michigan governorship. I think Mike Duggan is really going to make it hard for a Democrat to win Michigan. And also Gretchen Whitmer, who won by 10.5%, is term limited and will not be running again. So Democrats have to find a good person to replace her. And so with all things going right, I think Republicans might be able to win Michigan. And then the last state that I have is the state of New York. And under a best case scenario, and I'm talking best case scenario, I think that Republicans might be able to flip New York. Now, looking back at 2022, we see Kathy Hochul won by 6.4% against Lee Zeldin. And this race was considered to be pretty competitive, even though New York, just 2 years prior, voted for Biden by 23 points, a very, very big margin. But Kathy Hochul, even though she's in a deep blue state, is not that popular. A poll came out showing that only 48% of the people in New York support her or approve of how she's handling her job, while 42% oppose. That is not good numbers for a Democrat in New York. And so considering that, and also that Mike Lawler, who's a pretty popular congressman from New York, who really outran Trump in his district, is considering to run in New York, if everything goes right for Republicans, I do think that they might be able to flip New York. So this is my GOP best case scenario prediction. Republicans will get 23 seats to Democrats 13 seats, with the flips being Arizona, Kansas, Wisconsin, Michigan, and New York. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to smash the like button down below and subscribe. Comment your thoughts or suggestions in the comment section down below. Shout out to Diana Barbie, our first channel member. If you would like to become a member, you can join near my channel logo. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.